Giants continue to forget how to hit after the first inning. Is it too late for personnel changes? And let's talk about that pitching rotation. Should Tang stay in it? It's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and just a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area. I also host a show in Sacramento where I live now on Sacktown Sports 1140, as well as emceeing at Sacramento Rivercats games. I'm lucky enough to cover a team that I've been a fan of all my life. It's time to break down the Giants' problems with hitting, their personnel changes that they may need to make, and Kai-Wei Teng and that pitching rotation. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, here we are, another day in the life and another Giants loss, another day where they forget that you have to hit after the first inning. They lose to the Padres 5-1. And at this point, I don't have much more to say. Obviously, last week there were some pretty very, very passionate conversations that I had and very passionate rants that I had. But at this point, I don't really know what else to say. If you are putting up 4 hits in a Major League Baseball game and consistently staying around there, 1 run off a home run, they have 100 strikeouts to 18 walks over their past 9 games and have double-digit strikeouts in 5 straight. That's from Alex Pavlovich. They just need a complete overhaul when it comes to their hitting philosophy. I'd say everyone needs to reassess how they approach their at-bats besides maybe Rafi Devers. And he was cold before these last couple weeks. I just don't know what else they're supposed to do. They're simply unable to hit the baseball. Say what you want, but now Mike Yastrzemski gets traded and he's balling out, back-to-back home runs in 2 days straight for him. So I don't think that's a great look for Pat Burrell. I don't think that's a great look for the hitting staff on the San Francisco Giants that's in charge of getting these guys swings right. Just seems like whatever the Giants are doing or working on simply is not working. And I'm not going to call this a slump anymore. They're just bad at hitting. They cannot hit. This is not about a slump. They are bad at hitting the baseball. That's what this is. They're guessing. They're out in front. They're fouling off good pitches. The difference is when you watch these other teams going up against the Giants, not just the Padres. I know the Padres have a ridiculous lineup that's not even fully healthy right now, but it felt the same way against the Rays. These teams continue to put pressure on the pitching staff for the Giants. And some of that might be the pitchers for the Giants, even though it's happening against the Robbie Rays of the world and guys like that. I talked about Chandler Simpson a lot as the Giants took on the Rays and his speed and how that was just a nuisance for the Giants and other teams throughout the league. That's what he does. Then you get to the Padres and there's just no breathing room. Right? Even their lesser hitters, bottom of the lineup, they can leave the yard at any moment. They seem to be on time. They seem to understand what pitch is coming or what the pitchers are trying to do. So it's not just about the bottom of the rotation for the Giants. It's about the top of the rotation too. And I know Verlander did really well last weekend and Logan Webb is going to be Logan Webb. But even in those moments, going back to Logan Webb's previous start, and should we pull him out? What should we do there? There were even conversations because as far as he got, with the 1 run that he let up, there was just pressure being put on that team over and over again. That's what it was. At all points in times, there's pressure. This is what else Pavlovich had to say. Entering the night, the Giants had the 6th highest strikeout rate in Major League Baseball in the second half and ranked 23rd in walk rate. For a team that doesn't hit a lot of homers and doesn't hit at all with runners in scoring position, that's not a great starting point. They have no identity as a lineup. They legitimately look like they're praying up there, hoping that things go right, hoping that things change. But clearly, they are not praying hard enough. Okay. On the positives, I will say I liked what I saw from the return of leadoff Lee. You know that myself, as well as others, we have been begging to put Jung-Hoo Lee back in the leadoff spot just from what we've seen, him trying to go the other way, him bunting. He's looking the part as a leadoff hitter, and he hits a leadoff home run. He had 2 hits last night, so I really like that. I personally think that's the 1-2-3 order they should stick with: Jung-Hoo Lee, Elliot Ramos, and Robbie Devers. I'm more old school in my approach. I don't put as much on the lefty-righty matchups. I don't think that you should have 2 completely different lineups depending on who's on the mound. I think changes should be made from pitcher to pitcher, of course, but I don't think you should have 2 completely different lineups. I'd probably just rock and roll with those 3 guys, 1, 2, 3 for the rest of the season, because I mean, I just don't really know what else you would do. And then after that, obviously, no Chapman, no Adames yesterday. That stuff matters, right? But it hasn't mattered when they were both in the lineup as well anyway. But the Giants have to do something. You know, I see notes from other teams, and I'll just be reading throughout MLB.com, and they'll talk about changes that they've made, rookies that they brought up, veterans that they have, and hey, we've worked on making this change or that change. I'm not accusing the Giants of that not being true for them. What I am saying is that we have not seen that, or I haven't seen a lot of articles like that kind of laying out what exactly the Giants are working on. And it doesn't make me think that they're not doing anything. I'm not going to accuse them of that, but it would just be nice to know. When you've gone this cold, people need answers. The media need answers. The fans need answers. We understand it's baseball, and I know the old adage, you get out 7 out of 10 times, you're going to the Hall of Fame. That's fine, but the Giants are not even close to that, okay? And they're not putting the ball in play. That strikeout rate, they just look lost. They look lost. And we can take away these first innings, right? What they did the first game against the Padres, they had 4. And what they did last night, they had 1. That's 5 runs the last 18 innings and 0 runs if you subtract the first inning of those games, right? So that means once the pitchers kind of find a groove, there's nothing the Giants can do. They jump on them early. Okay, cool. And this is just a couple games. Let's not act like the Giants have historically been jumping on these teams in first innings. They haven't been doing anything. So they're jumping on these pitchers early. The pitcher falls into a groove, and the Giants just absolutely cannot make changes, cannot make any adjustments. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So we'll see if they're able to make any adjustments tonight, as they have 2 more against the Padres. But this thing has just been a bit tough to watch, and I'm not really sure if I'm willing to still call this a slump, right? This is the longest slump I think we've ever seen. You know, we were joking about the 1901 and things like that, and how bad the losing streak was. This slump has been the whole second half of the season. So I don't know that that's a slump, or that other teams made adjustments and the Giants weren't able to adjust to those adjustments. And that leads us right into the next segment, where we discuss whether or not it is too late to make personnel changes. Don't go anywhere. More Locked On Giants coming up next. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Seat views right in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you'll be. I hate when I don't know. I'll never forget. I went to this game and there was a pole right in front of me and I had no clue. And I spent some pretty penny on it. So it's very important to be able to know where exactly your seats are going to be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I've been meaning to tell you about my new favorite jeanswear brand, Doer. I've been living in their stretch canvas utility jacket, and honestly, they've completely changed the game for me. And the timing couldn't be better. Doer is opening a brand new store in Hayes Valley on August 27th, and let me tell you why it's worth making the trip, okay? I've worn this stretch utility jacket to work, running errands, grabbing dinner with friends, even to sporting events, and they never miss. It looks good, feels good, and is perfect for those unpredictable San Francisco days. Doer combines classic jeans wear style with the comfort and performance of athletic wear without sacrificing that style. And Doer will be opening a brand new store in Hayes Valley on August 27th. Head over to 567 Hayes Street, mention my code LOCKEDONSF in store, and 15% off your first order, or go to shopdoer.com/lockedonsf. That's DUER for 15% off online. Trust me, once you try them, you'll never want to wear anything else. The question is, are we too far gone to make personnel changes? Honestly, I feel like that brutal homestand was the window to make those changes. And, whether that was going to be Bob Melvin or Pat Burrell. And I think Buster Posey made a statement by simply going about business as usual. And, we saw different reports come out that the Giants aren't planning on making any changes within the season. So I think that they're telling us, hey, we're going to power through with what we have, and we don't want to kind of sway anything and make the ship any kind of squirrelier than it already is. There's pretty much nothing on the line now. As you notice, I didn't mention how far back the Giants are because it really doesn't matter until they actually do something and go on a run, right? They were 5.5 games back going into, it might have been 6 going into last night's game, and then they lost again. So it's to the point where I'm just not sure what firing anyone would do. In other sports, the team will fire their coach looking for a bump heading into the playoffs or to power you into the playoffs. A couple different NBA teams did that, but I think it's just too late. If you were going to do that, you do it during the 1901 stretch. That's just what we'll joke and call it now. Bringing in an interim manager doesn't make a ton of sense unless you'd be hiring them or planning on hiring them going into next season and you want to basically try it out. And at this point, I know I've been worried that the Giants are going to win too many games and the vibes would be right. And Buster says, hey, we can keep Bob for one more season and see what happens. Yeah, I don't know how much I'm worried about that now. Just let Bob finish the season. I don't know how much I'm tripping over the Giants going on some stretch. I looked at their schedule again, and I know we talked about the strength of schedule. I think it's just all about timing. So they do have a pretty soft strength of schedule. They were in the 20s. I think they might have been 23, something like that. But it's all about the timing and how much it's going to matter, right? So they have, 2 more games against the Padres. And the strength of schedule, to me, based on how the Giants are playing, it doesn't matter. They could lose to anybody. So we've already talked about the Padres, and they have the Brewers and Cubs after this, which we've also discussed. They get a quote-unquote break, okay, with series against the Orioles, Rockies, Cardinals, and Diamondbacks. That is the easy stretch that everybody was saying, hey, get through the Padres, the Brewers, and the Cubs, and then you have those 4. I have no clue if the Giants can win those series. And the more that they lose now, the more that we'd be looking at sweeps, hopefully. I don't know that they can beat the Orioles. The Rockies, you never know with them. The Cardinals are the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks are right there with the Giants. So you have those 4 series. Then you have 7 more games against the Smurfs in LA. So I have no clue, or I guess I should say, I have zero confidence or worry, if you will, where the Giants are going to go on some type of run. Not that they would make the playoffs, but a run that was strong enough for them to say, hey, we're going to hold on to Bob this next season and see what happens. I think if they hold on to Bob Melvin, it's because this decision has already been made. This decision has already been made. For whatever reason, hey, we picked up the option. We think it was just a bad stretch. So we are going to keep doing what we've been doing. And that's the situation. Right, we're not going to leave Bob out there stranded. We like what we have. Maybe they change Pat Burrell and the hitting staff and the hitting coach. Maybe they do that, but I don't think that there is anything. Honestly, I mean, I guess if you lose every game, but I kind of feel, and I have heard some of this from I'd say people close to the situation, that Bob Melvin is probably already done. And if he's not already done, it would take a really, really miraculous stretch of games here for his job to be saved, which, again, 2 more games against the Padres, then you got the Brewers, then you got the Cubs, then you get that little quote-unquote break, as we mentioned. You still got a bunch of games against the Dodgers. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. So the worry about the Giants being just good enough, I don't have that worry. And whatever that worry is, from what I'm hearing, I don't think it would be enough to save Bob Melvin's job. If you are a fan of moving on from Bob Melvin, then I guess that should make you feel good. I know nobody's trying to take anybody's job or want someone to lose their job. But yeah, I think that this decision has kind of already been made, unless they go on a legit run, not we're already out of contention and now we're going to win a couple games at the end of the season against the Diamondbacks. We're going to win 2 series. I'm talking, hey, if they keep this up, they could sneak into the playoffs, even if they miss the playoffs. I think Bob could keep his job even if they miss the playoffs, but it would have to be they end up 1 game out. Them winning a couple series against whoever, once this thing is completely out of reach, I don't believe is going to help his case enough to keep the job. But things can change. You never know. You never know. One more segment with you. Let's talk about Kai-Wei Teng and that pitching rotation. Where should the Giants go as the season starts to come to a close? Don't go anywhere. More Locked On Giants coming up next. So we've talked about the hitting. We've talked about the coaching staff. Let's discuss the pitching, which has not been as hot as it was in the first half of the season. And again, the team has just been completely different since the first half of the season. At this point, with Kai-Wei Teng specifically, he is a very hittable pitcher on the major league level, right? We know what he is right now. And I'm not totally sure he's going to be a starter at this level. I'm probably more sure that he isn't going to be a starter at this level, but he does have that starting point. He does have an MLB slider. I'll give him that. If you can't throw strikes in this league, though, it's going to be tough sledding. This is from Alex Pavlovich. Overall, he continues to struggle with his command. Through 4 appearances this year, he has 9 walks in 13 1/3 innings. He also has hit 3 batters. Teng cut his walk rate significantly in AAA this year, but that hasn't translated to the big leagues yet. So he does have a history of improving, which I think is always, a good sign. But improving at the AAA level is not exactly the same as improving at the big league level. And if he is going to improve in that way, I'm just not sure it's going to be as a starter. This is how it happens a lot of times, though, right? Guys that were starting in the minors, even if they get to AAA as a starter, there's a good chance that they could be moved to the bullpen, right? The MLB bullpens are filled with former starters on the different minor league levels. Very similar to someone that comes up as a shortstop and then gets moved to second or third, or a center fielder that gets moved to a corner position, things like that. And with all that being said, I do think it is probably Blade Tidwell time, right? Someone you're willing to give that experience to and see how he performs at this level. At the same time, though, to be completely honest with you, I don't think it's a very confident situation for any pitcher to walk into the way the Giants are swinging the bats. I'm not saying that's a reason to not pull up a pitcher, but you're dealing with the team that just can't hit, right? Cannot hit at all. And because they cannot hit at all, you're putting a pitcher in a tough spot where, even the Logan Webbs and the Verlanders of the world, they feel, hey, if I give up one run, they'll never say this, but hey, if I give up one run, 2 runs, this thing might be cooked, right? And you're trying to be a little bit too fine with it. I know the broadcast has talked about that before with certain other pitchers. You could throw Roop in there too. So you're throwing somebody in the pool, seeing if they could swim. But honestly, as much as we've talked about Carson Whisenhunt and Hayden Birdsong, which feels like a lifetime ago, they haven't been shut down, but they've put the Giants in positions to at least hang around and possibly win a ball game. I'm not saying it's kind of the other side of bringing up a hitter, right? And remember that whole ordeal with how the Giants, and it's not just the Giants, but they would bring up hitters, and then that hitter would only play against the better matchup. So they would bring up a righty. He would only play against lefties. They'd bring up a lefty. He'd only play against righties. And I was always against that because I wondered, at what point are you going to let them hit against both? Right now, they're up here missing at bats against the lefty pitcher or the righty pitcher. I didn't really agree with that process, right? In total, I know I've talked about bringing up Marco Luciano. He's specifically been very good against lefties, so I think that'd be a bit of a different situation. But as far as pitchers are concerned, you're going to pull up a young pitcher right now with a lineup that cannot hit a beach ball into the ocean, right? So you got to be careful. I'm not saying not to do that, but I do think it's something that the Giants should at least pay attention to, right? You look at this rotation, and for a fact that there are 2 spots that you need to fill moving forward, Tang and Verlander. And I'm sure they like to believe that they'll fill in the back of their rotation in-house by giving Birdsong another go at it. Then you can have Carson Whisenhunt and possibly or Blade Tidwell. Whisenhunt is another guy that I've mentioned. He hasn't had that classic shutdown game where he's just overpowering big league hitters. And I think that's what fans are clamoring for. The Giants, none of their young pitchers have really shown to have that shutdown. This is MLB stuff, right? I think they could become MLB pitchers, but that classic shutdown MLB stuff. I've seen some of that with Blade Tidwell, but again, we have to see how it translates to the big league level because everybody throws hard now, right? I don't want to get caught up in, hey, this guy throws hard, he's ready for the big leagues. Everybody throws hard now. It's harder to find guys that don't throw hard than guys that do. So again, you're pulling somebody up and you're throwing them into a lineup that cannot hit right now and hasn't been able to hit for the larger part of the last 3 months. You have to be careful with that. And regardless of the lineup, simply put, just based on numbers, I'm not very confident that 2 out of those 3 guys in Tidwell, Whisenhunt, and Birdsong will be able to fill those 2 spots in the shutdown sense. I think you could survive, but you're probably looking at getting one more arm on the market during the offseason. So if you're able to do that, then yes, a Whisenhunt, a Tidwell, a Birdsong can be that last rotation spot that you are trying to fill. But the chances that you're going to fill both of them, right? You're going to fill both of them in-house. And I know Tidwell was technically from a trade, so that wouldn't really be in-house. But guys that don't have a ton of Major League Baseball experience, I don't know about that one. I think that one, it would be very optimistic. And the only thing I would say is if you don't want to move off of any of the rest of your talent right now, you could go into next season with that hope and hopefully it works out for you. I mean, you could sit there and say, well, a Birdsong, we know that he is an MLB pitcher. He got really cold, and maybe some of that was burnout with his arm, getting really close to his innings limit. Maybe it could be that. But if Birdsong is closer to what he was his first couple starts than his last couple starts, and then you do have something with Tidwell, you could definitely survive, right? And you go into that, and if you're not able to survive, then you say, okay, Tidwell's working out, or Whisenhunt's working out, or Birdsong's working out. All we need to do is go get one more. That's how you are probably going to approach this thing for the San Francisco Giants. But the idea that those two spots, Teng and Burrell, and Teng doesn't have to go away. I think you can look at him as a bullpen guy and see how he does there. Maybe there's a little bit less pressure on him. The thing about bullpen guys, you got to come in throwing strikes. And if your issue to a certain extent is throwing strikes, that's really tough from a bullpen perspective. But you could make those decisions as they come. And I think you see if Blade Tidwell is a guy that has a version of that shutdown stuff. And if he does seem to be that guy, then okay, let's do what we need to do. Kind of name him or pencil him in as one of your starters moving into next season. And Birdsong, Whisenhunt, two of those guys can be on the other side. And if one of them doesn't work out, there's always a starting pitcher somewhere. What it's going to cost you, that's a different conversation. But you're going to be able to find starting pitching somewhere if that's needed. And right now, that's kind of the least of the Giants' worries. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. My name is Alan Styles. Be sure to follow me on social media at @_Styles Files, Styles with an I. And thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all night Locked On MLB game night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll see you there. Peace.